So we have a little bit of information to share. So this is the crew from our future timeline, which we are already in season 5, but for today we're in season 4, episode 17. This is future Mel, Sunday, and Legendary Black Lion re-recording this episode because it was lost in the ether. And that is one of those things that happened. So I'm gonna be the first to say I apologize because I thought I was doing as much as I could to save everything, but I just couldn't do it, Captain.
Yeah, it's my fault too.
You know, it's all good. The crew sometimes runs into obstacles, and that's cool. Mm-hmm. And here we are today. So we are gonna jump in. It'll be the first time that you all hear this, but it'll be the second time that we've discussed this, which I think would be a lot of fun because of where we are currently in the timeline for this week. So thank you all for bearing with us. Watching this episode, I want to know, what are some of y'all's initial impressions of what happened?
The second part of the noir.
Yeah, the second part of the noir.
It was kind of interesting to hear how Psychor decided to alter Garibaldi's brain in order to use him. Like, he already has all the qualities we need. Nudged him a little bit. Which makes Garibaldi even worse character. Cause
I really like acting Captain Ivanova. Hello. Because it's on sight. It's like, oh, you thought we was going to turn down? For what?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And for me, it gave me an opportunity to relook at these characters, knowing where they go. Thinking about Garibaldi, I don't necessarily turn a new leaf on him. He is terrible at his job, but the things that are his strengths being manipulated and then him being told how invaluable those traits was extremely grounding for me, because, well, we'll get there, but Garibaldi had to be Garibaldi in order for this to work. And the other character is Bester, which I'm surprised to say this, but I'm looking at Bester through a different light. And I'm wondering if J. Michael Straczynski was trying to get this perspective. I mean, he's an awful, terrible villain character. He's a disgusting person to share space with, but if you listen to his motivations, you start to realize like there's something there.
Yeah.
And when you guys get to some of my season 5 episodes, which we're already recording, you'll understand what I mean, because there are certain characters that appear, and the way that they introduce them remind me of the X-Men. And with that perspective, or with that kind of informing my perspective, I look at Bester slightly different. No, Bester is not Magneto. No, but he's a different character.
Bester kind of outside of X-Men, but still Marvel. The anti-hero, like Killmonger. Like, we understand why he's doing what he's doing. He's pretty just in what he's doing, but the way he goes about it, it's just wrong.
Yeah, he's an awful person. But there's a good reason, and they explain that in this episode. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So we open up. Sheridan's forces are like, okay, we're going to Earth. And they're facing a lot of resistance from Clark's ships, the Earth Force warships. We got Sheridan and Marcus. Marcus. And they are wondering why the enemy refuses to surrender. And while they send out the Hails, they learn there's a lot of ships that are trying to fight them, even though they're outnumbered, they're disabled, and there's no possibility of them winning. But we switch to seeing good old Dr. Franklin and Lita Alexander. They are on Mars, and they are delivering their cargo of frozen telepaths, and that's a wild thing that'll be happening. We can, like I said, we'll chat a little bit about that part later. Garibaldi is on Mars, and he's talking with Edgars. Edgars is basically saying, like, are you sure he's going to come? And Garibaldi's like, yep, he's going to come. I'm going to set the trap using his father. And it's like, are you sure this will work? And Garibaldi assures him, like, his father's involved, it will work. It's gonna get him. Edgar promises Garibaldi, okay, after we capture Sheridan, we're gonna give you the whole truth as a reward. And Garibaldi, he expressed this distaste for the job. And this is one of the contradictions that comes across with Garibaldi, because we know how atheist he is and honestly anti-religion he is. He immediately says, well, the last guy was paid 30 pieces of silver. And he's using kind of like religious language and religious stories to define his betrayal of Sheridan. But he was also the one in a couple episodes ago that was really upset about Sheridan being like the savior that came back to life. You know what I mean? The savior that died and came back to life. So it's just kind of interesting. Like that imagery is sticking with Garibaldi for a reason.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, he thinks he's some type of messiah or cult of personality. And then last episode, he said that he thinks he's John the Baptist, and then now he sees him as Jesus, and he's selling him out as he's Judas. Like,
yep. And it shows some of the complexity with Garibaldi. I know this has been present, but now that I've had the opportunity to look at it again, it's just like, okay, this is kind of interesting. Let's put a magnifying glass on this character. When we get to it, I'm going to share a little bit more of my thoughts. When we come back, we see that Sheridan orders the opposing ships to go ahead and stand down, and Captain Leo Frank challenges him. He's like, look, I'm not giving up to you. We know what you are like, because he's afraid that he's going to face execution. And it comes out that the Earth Force ships have been told that Sheridan's forces are brutal and they torture and murder their captives. And Sheridan's like, what? We don't do that. But what happens is Captain McDougal pipes up and he's talking to Captain Frank. And he's like, is that you, Frank? He's like, yeah. And this is something I wrote on my notes I thought was pretty cool, because we have two of the black captains on opposite sides of the Earth Force War, the Earth Force Civil War, and they actually show that they have some recognition with each other. And I'm gonna say it like this, because I am highlighting, like, these are the two black captains, which bravo 1990s J. Michael Straczynski. These are captains. They have names and they're doing some important things, right? And they're complex characters. Also, they are not doing anything stereotypical. They are doing their jobs. And this is something that does come across quite frequently with the Earth Force characters. They all recognize each other. There doesn't seem to be like this distant alienation because some people are part of a different class, a different race, a different branch. They are pretty familiar with each other. So bravo. And oh yeah. In my notes, I said, is there some sort of Bechdel test for stuff like this where we have two black people who are talking to each other and they're not trying to murder each other, and they're also not playing up some jive talking, like, familiar?
yeah, yeah, they just act like military officers that knew each other.
Yeah. So they convince Captain Frank to go ahead and surrender. So as soon as that happens, tension rises again as the Agamemnon jumps into the fray. And if we remember, this is the ship that Captain Sheridan was first debuted on. This is when he first appeared on in the entire show. This is his old ship. And he's like, oh no, we're about to fight again. And this is an emotional moment because Sheridan doesn't want to fight the Agamemnon. He's just kind of holding out. He's like, okay, Agamemnon, are y'all here to fight or what's going on? And it turns out that the captain of the Agamemnon says, no, we're not here to fight. We're actually here to join you. We've been trying to follow you for days and you're just too fast. We want to join up.
That's great. You're so smart, because I was gonna kill you. Like, I ain't gonna hold you, but I fuck with y'all. So I'm glad that y'all not like coming here to die, because we just trying to get y'all to see that y'all being ordered around by a complete fascist psychopathic loser. And we need to stop that.
And just for everyone that's listening, in October of 2025, she's talking about President Clark in the show.
Yeah, we're talking about a fictional character.
Back on Mars, Franklin and Lita, they're meeting with the resistance, and number one is absolutely furious because she's like, "You were here before. You ain't tell me you was a telepath before." And Lita's like, "Well, I was on the run from Psycor, so I couldn't really say nothing." She says, "Nope, you should have told me in the beginning that you were a telepath." And we find out a little bit later why. Because number one is pissed. Uh, and then Franklin drops on her like, "Oh yeah, by the way, we have a lot of cargo that we're dropping off." And she's like, "Cargo? What kind of cargo?" And so they pull up one of the cryostasis, they remove the blanket, and there is a frozen telepath behind the glass. And she's like, "Oh shit." Sheridan has a fond reunion with Captain James on the Agamemnon. They talk about how the tracking systems have been updated. And, he's having a moment of time where he's experiencing the nostalgia of his old ship. Remember, before he was stationed on Babylon 5, he spent 2 years on the Rim in the Agamemnon. That was his baby. He knows every
Yeah,
inch of that ship.
yeah.
And so
And his family.
yeah. And they get a brief update about the crew and how they were assigned to track down Sheridan. But Captain James and Miss is like, "Hey, we were told to come chase you, but the orders from Clark were illegal." So
We finally had a mind of our own. It was like, you know what? That ain't right.
yeah,
So we got one group of soldiers that has a brain. Now, I'm not sure if the rest of them are missing hearts or what part of the yellow brick road they need to go watch so that they can get on board, but hello.
Yeah. And like what I know about military training, which is very little, but they do, well, I have a somewhat uncle who was a JRTC teacher, and my sister was in his JRTC. And the point of going through military training is for them to break you down so that you are malleable to just take instruction. I had an ex who was military. He was very strong on that. He didn't like it when I would like speak my opinions on things that are already set by authority. It's wonder how I ended up in a relationship like that. But yeah, yeah, yeah. I always joke that he was a capitalist and I'm an anarchist.
well, also with him being a former military, like the respecting the hierarchical structure is a thing. But the problem is they don't know how to leave that in the military. They try to take that home, and it just don't work.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, like we saw with Dick, Franklin's father. Franklin's dad, Richard.
So we switch back and we see that Garibaldi has sent his transmission to Sheridan. And this really pissed me off, honestly, because Garibaldi is telling Sheridan, like, "Hey, they got your dad. We figured out where he is. Now, you got a small amount of time, but we can get him. All you got to do is come to Mars and we can get together and go rescue him." I mean, of course, to the audience, yes, this is an obvious trap. But come on now. Garibaldi's just not convincing to me. There was kind of something that came up because Sheridan is like, Garibaldi would not intentionally harm me because they were having a discussion with the rest of the crew, like, "Hey, what you gonna do? You ain't going there, right? It's a trap, right?" He's like, "Yeah, but Garibaldi, we had our differences, but he's not gonna hurt me."
Didn't they jump into a fight?
And that it really frustrates me, but it reminds me like Sheridan's heart. Sheridan is kind of like, he is a hero character. Granted, he's being presented as someone who has complex characteristics, complex motivations. He's going to be the hero at the end of the day. Now, we made fun of Sinclair for his kind of, it's kind of like heroism, but it's also his death wish.
Yeah.
But we can write that off on his trauma from the war. He was one of the people that was captured and examined and let go. Sheridan, he is kind of behaving as if like the Messiah character right now. He's like, "No, I need to save everybody." With all that discussion, Sheridan, he says, "You know what? I got to give it a shot. I'm going to go ahead and try to rescue my dad. And he tells Ivanova, like, you're going to keep going. You're going to continue this campaign. You're in charge now. Don't stop for me. And here's the thing. I know that Sunday was like, oh yes, acting Captain Ivanova. Here's the thing about Ivanova. Ivanova is very practical, very pragmatic. She probably would have scorched earth herself. You know? And she's like, that's what my that's what my orders were. I'm gonna do it. I want well, when we get to episode 1, season 5, we'll have a further discussion about Ivanova. Anyway, so Sheridan decides he's going to go to Mars alone, and it's against everybody's advice. He takes the Agamemnon to go there, and then he gets hopped off on a Star Fury. He believes that somehow he's going to find a way to make that whole situation with Garibaldi work. But I mean, as the audience, we know what's going on with Garibaldi. He's being mind controlled by Bester of all people. Sheridan does give Ivanova the command, like, only take the fleet that are human command officers with you, because they want to avoid having aliens surrounding the Earth Force ships and have it mimic the Earth Minbari War. He doesn't want to cause that trauma again and put humans into like this bloodlust to win a war again. That's kind of cool. So it's more or less human versus human in this Earth Civil War.
Like a civil war, yeah. Exactly.
Earth is doing this mainly because they're afraid of the influence of aliens. So if aliens came and attacked, and most of their campaign against Sheridan is saying that he's trying to integrate aliens into our culture more than we want.
On Mars, Franklin and Number One are having this conversation. So it's mealtime, and Number One is like really emitting some attitude when Lita sits down and she's like, maybe I should eat somewhere else. And Franklin's like, no, don't go anywhere. And then Number One's like, nah, go somewhere. Lita explains like what's going on. And she's like, maybe Number One's upset about Psycor's bloodhound units. And Franklin's like, I don't know what any of this is about. And Lita explains how those units and other abuses by Psycor have caused a lot of friction, because what they would do on Mars is anyone that was found in connection with the Resistance would get deep telepathic scans. And we learned that those telepathic scans are extremely dangerous. They will cause all kinds of trauma, strokes, and other types of like brain trauma. And she reveals that Psycor is predicting a war with telepaths and mundanes, and they are really just being forceful with their abilities. And so she shares a story. She used to be with the Cyclops, and this explains why she's no longer a Cyclops and why they haven't approached her with that job again. What it was, her and a bunch of Cyclops were tracking a rogue telepath that was a serial killer. And they found him, but they couldn't go to the police to have him arrested because they were using unauthorized scans to find him. And basically, in a court of law, they would be questioned, and their whole thing would be found unethical. They would be the ones being put in jail and not the serial killer.
Yeah.
And so, instead of calling the police, they implanted some thoughts in his mind that causes him to scream at things that he can only see. She says somewhere on a beta colony in an institution is a person screaming at things that only he can see. The things that they implanted in his mind were terrifying. And she said that she was never afraid of being a telepath until that day when they found the serial killer. That's when they saw what telepaths can really do. And that is disturbing. This is going to come in handy with a storyline in season 5, but it paints the telepaths as not like these mundane enhanced humans, but there's something a little bit different. They have power, and that power is fearful even to the telepaths. So imagine the type of thing that they would be facing when humans decide to go against them, right?
Right.
I can see how that is problematic. And they have to set the stage for what, could potentially be next, like doing some build up towards the next big thing after, this current battle and everything concludes, because we've kind of had a civil war on all the different planets and, factions and different things. So Earth might be the last one, but I was very much triggered by the interactions between these three individuals. I think she's number one, is her name, and the good doctor, and now this telepath who, you know, she has been in a lot of different situations and, just trying her best to find a place where she fits. And she's, been through a lot. And so for the doctor to have her come with him on this mission, and there was like no forewarning of like, hey, we're about to go somewhere where I'm about to put us in danger. That is kind of jacked.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't surprised that number one had a problem with her. So why you just got your partner walking in blind like this, I think is wild. But the doctor being, such the beautiful human being that he is, he's, trying to find a way for everybody to understand each other and to find the solutions to the problem instead of like being butthurt over not being informed what he was going into blindly. And that just builds his character up in spades yet again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was instructed by Sheridan to just go there and wait for instructions. So that's also part of the reason why nobody knows anything. They don't, and they also don't like to send lots of information to Mars because it can be intercepted. And so going there and surprising number one with telepaths was Sheridan's plan. And, and Franklin kind of like understands why, because we can't let them find out that we have these telepaths or that we're even
But what
going
was
to.
stopping Lita from telling Franklin, like, hey, where we roll up, they not gonna be cool when they find out I'm a telepath.
Oh, oh, she might not know. She probably didn't. She knows anyway. Everybody knows because she's a telepath. Like lots of people don't like telepaths, especially if you on the underground and everything you doing on the hush hush, and people can go read your mind. Like that was kind of obvious. Like, yeah.
Franklin's like, well, we got a bunch of telepaths coming. We just gonna go. And she's like, yeah, we'll get there. And it's like, why is she so mad? Well, she's probably mad because of what telepaths been doing to folks. It's not such a great thing. So, I mean, it's putting a bunch of people who are already in a rough situation in even more like bad situations.
Yeah.
And really it's Sheridan, but it's also thinking like the higher powers, Earth Force, the way that they control telepaths in Psychor, the unethical actions in Psychor, and just the broader society treating telepaths as second class citizens. Number one does inform Franklin and Lita like, hey, we just got word that you guys are on your own. So y'all better figure out how this is gonna work. And yeah, y'all better know what y'all's doing because we're not getting any more transmissions, any more updates from Sheridan. They're like, okay. So situation even got deeper. Ivanova is leaving Babylon 5 to command the fleet. Delenn agrees to watch over Babylon 5. And Ivanova tells Delenn everything about Sheridan. And at this point, you could feel like, okay, Delenn is in a situation where she's about to see the love of her life die again. I mean, the dude he done died already.
Well, he knows that he's got 20 years, so he's kind of like, fuck it, I ain't gonna die because I already know I'm not gonna die yet because I've seen the future.
Right. How bad can this be?
Didn't think about the fact that there's things worse than death.
That is my thing. I be telling people whenever I'm like talking about veganism and they're just like, well, what if there was an apocalypse? Then what you gonna eat? I'm like, yo, dying is okay. Like, it's not that bad, I don't think. Oh, and another thing that I'm really wanting to talk about is Sheridan's eagerness to go without a plan B into when we start tying our shoes without a backup plan. You got contingency plans on how to push forward the resistance. You got everything taken care of back in Babylon 5, but you don't got your own ass covered, sir. What are we doing?
Messiah complex.
Yeah, or he's just being emotional about like confronting Michael and thinking maybe he's gonna be nice now for something. Yeah. It's like, oh, he's trying to be a friend again. Let me trust him. Hey, no, you should have brought Marcus. But that would ruin a whole lot of things that we've seen happen in the future. Marcus died, like he was trained for this. This is what he does. He would have came out of the shadows out of nowhere and it would have made complete sense.
This is where people need to channel their inner Capricorn. People can't be trusted. And if somebody ifs up and then tries to get back into your life, you need to proceed with absolute caution. And I'm talking like however long it took them to get close to you the first time, you need to double it this second time. Because, like, even I have made the mistake of allowing people to come back and it don't work. And I usually have a very staunch policy about doing things on repeat. Like, we don't wash, rinse, and repeat around here. We wash that shit and let it go. Let it be dead. Don't be doubling back. It's always bad. I mean, I'm sorry. I think I went a little left there. Let's bring it back to the show. Go ahead.
Yeah, speaking of the show, so there are two really great scenes that come up here quickly. The first one is Sheridan going to Mars. So he's going to Mars to meet Garibaldi, and this scene is shot so wonderful because he goes into this seedy, sleazy dive bar on Mars. It's really dark and hazy, and he meets Garibaldi like, "Hey, what do we know?" He explains like, "No, I'm glad that you're here," and they have a few words, and then Sheridan just sits, is like, "Okay, you said that there was a way to help my dad. What do I do?" Garibaldi looks at him. He goes, "You already did it. And I'm sorry about this." He's like, "What?" And then he slaps onto his wrist a tranquilizer, which, cool little piece of futuristic technology. Skin to skin contact for some drugs. All right, gotcha. And we get the song. It's kind of a bluesy song in the background that a woman is singing, and it's great. But Sheridan, the drugs take effect immediately. Sheridan is pissed off. He's like, "What?" And he's trying to
He
fight.
was so good though. He really looked like he was drugged.
Yeah. And he's trying to fight through it because here comes a bunch of thugs trying, accosting him. And he's fighting. He's knocking out a couple of them, and he gets thrown around, and he ends up on the ground. He's taken into custody by multiple men while Garibaldi watches him passively. His look on his face, though, is like, "But I had to do it." He knows it's wrong, but he's like, "I had to do it." And that's the thing. That's the sad thing. You got two people on the opposite sides of whatever the conflict is, and both of them thinking that they're doing the right thing. Garibaldi, in his mind controlled self, he thinks that he's helping Sheridan. And Sheridan thinks he's helping his father. And the whole thing just falls apart because if you want to know when something, when a betrayal is really taking place and things start to go off the rails and everything seems ruined, figure out figure out which billionaire is bankrolling it, and that's where you'll find it.
Wow. Hell yeah.
So immediately we see the ISN is talking about how Sheridan was captured. It's pretty bad because while they're explaining it, they're saying like, "Oh, he's going to be taken care of and he's great and he's in good hands and he's in a comfortable place." And meanwhile, he's being beaten and tortured, right? Ivanova gets the news and she's like, "You know what? We knew that this would happen. Sheridan is expendable. This job is not. So now is Marcus and Ivanova. They have to go lead the fleet."
And the news broadcast also mentioned that Michael Garibaldi was the one who was responsible for his capture. And Ivanova says shoot him on sight.
Yeah, because
I
they're like,
love that because that is such a like I don't know, it's like a black phrase from my perspective. Like it's on site. You say that everybody know, like you Cone Stove getting punched in the mouth, like ain't nobody gonna talk, no nothing. So be forewarned, don't get blindsided by the violence that is coming your way.
right. But it's so wild too because Garibaldi, he's doing his private investigator thing, and all of his business is now all over the galaxy on the news. They got a zoomed in photo of him, like, yes, this is the one that sold out Captain Sheridan.
What I was going to say earlier is like the news is broadcasting the story in a way to further highlight how awful the resistance is. When in reality, the things that they're accusing the resistance of are the things that they're actually doing.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
it just makes me think like, is there not space to understand and I don't know because like I'm currently living up under a system myself that is constantly lying to me and selling down propaganda and able to see that they're accusing the other side of the things that they're doing. It's
So,
such a difficult thing to
yeah.
tease
Well,
out.
us as the audience, we recognize and they've kind of primed us for this too. The multiple episodes of having ISN do stories on the station and do stories on the characters, before and after Clark, is pretty interesting because we had to see the character, which is ISN or the media itself, being portrayed in a way for us to get primed to say like, oh, the media is lying. They're not going to tell the exact truth, anything like that. And so when we get to this part where they are spewing pure propaganda, we start to realize like, oh no, that's an injustice. They're not telling the truth. You can't trust what the news is saying, and there's probably people like that in that world. It reminds me, I think it was Running Man, an old Schwarzenegger movie from the 80s, where they talk about how the news just kind of makes up stories and they just say stuff and people just go with it. But then there are people who are like, no, we know for a fact that this is just not true. We know we can't say anything about it because we'll, going against the media and going against the state is going to get us hurt. But yeah, it's fake. Oh, they did the same thing in V for Vendetta as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, anything that has propaganda in any way, it's just them. And even in personal situations where you have someone manipulating you, they'll always try to change the narrative. That's what the gaslighting is, to try to make you think that you don't know what you know, and try to put their thoughts in your head and keep you questioning yourself. And it's dizzy. I mean, dizzy is the lightest way for me to put it. When you can't trust your own thoughts, it's terrifying.
And that's the objective of this, especially stay run media. You can't trust your own thoughts. Trust what you're being fed, because your own thoughts are going to get you, once you start thinking, you're going to start thinking thoughts, right? And those thoughts going to be treasonous thoughts.
That happens in other situations too, like some religions. They tell you not to trust your own thoughts, that you just need to come to us for everything, and we'll tell you what to think. So these people who are deep into religions that do that don't have any type of cognitive thinking process. When you put two and two in front of them, and they're still going to tell you, but so and so said this, and it ain't got nothing to do with two and two.
So the second scene that I think is amazing is this one. The truth being given to Garibaldi by Edgars. So Garibaldi confronts Edgars. He's like, okay, you told me to do this. Give me the truth. It's funny because I like this actor, but Edgars comes across as like an old, decrepit, just waste of a man. You know what I mean? And he's supposed to be like this all knowing or this prepared billionaire, right? And he just down talks the whole situation, and then he exposes the truth. He talks about how like Clark isn't an issue. He'll leave office soon, in a couple of years, whatever. The next guy, all that's fine. Telepaths are the real problems. Is those telepaths. To keep power, Clark put telepaths in certain positions. He had Night Watch, the Ministry of Peace, and Psychor all working together. This is his power base. And information is power. And he explains how the telepaths are a threat to freedom. He says the death of human liberty is through thought. And then Wade reveals even more of the truth of Garibaldi. Edgars pulls out the vial. He's like, "You remember seeing this?" He's like, "Yeah, that's the antidote thing that you had Lise snuggle onto the station." He goes, "Yeah, I mean, there is an antidote in here, but this is actually the virus. And it took us a long time to develop this." And it's like, oh, that kind of truth. And basically, Edgar's enterprise, his medical, he does medical technology. They developed a disease that only affects telepaths. It is extremely contagious. And if they get infected by it, they have to take an injection every week. And if they miss just one, they die. So Eggers is trying to kill two birds with one stone. One, he wants to control telepaths artificially because he thinks that telepaths will eventually become the dominant species. And then two, he wants to exploit that situation and make money off of them through healthcare costs.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
He's an evil corporation.
I mean, again, we're only talking about fictional characters. We're not talking about anything in real life here in October of 2025. Who would ever use healthcare as a reason to go to war with other people? And they have this conversation about how every time you have a race that has some type of advantage, whether it's technological or biological, it overtakes the previous species. And I liked the way that they had this conversation here because this is what reminded me of X-Men. He talks about the telepaths being homo superior over the homo sapiens. And this is where I kind of get the feeling like, okay, telepaths are not just enhanced humans. They are the next step above humans, and they have powers. And what they can do with their powers is something that's amazing. And so they're being treated as a second-class race, second-class citizens. And Edgar want to create out of them a slave race. And this is textbook eugenics. This is textbook eugenics. Edgar's even says, I refuse to be a second class to a telepath.
The way back a few episodes when they had experimented on the other telepath's boyfriend and he turned into a spiritual being, it was somewhat slightly similar to what we saw with the what's they called, Ambassador Kosh's race. Yeah, and I'm also thinking about something that comes up later in the season. We get to see some foreshadowing, and all those things are kind of connected. So it is kind of leading towards that being the next evolution of humans. But no, humans can't live with anybody, so we can't have nothing nice.
And this is kind of the same story of, like I said, it's the same story of X-Men where the Friends of Humanity, their whole thing is mutants are the next step in evolution and they're going to destroy us, so we need to destroy them before they destroy us. The advantage that they have are their powers, and there is this fear of becoming a target. And I wonder why. Why would you fear of becoming a target after you completely oppress and subjugate a race of people? Who would be afraid of becoming the oppressed? I wonder.
We definitely want to highlight how people's lack of emotional regulation is leading to all kinds of war and atrocities. Because at one point in time, little Johnny got scared, and instead of somebody helping him co-regulate, he just is flashing and wilding out. And now we got civil war after civil war just happening on all sides. And
Mm.
it's really sad that, I mean, I know this is a TV show and all the things, but it is a very strong parallel to reality. And somebody at some time, you know, dealt with a trauma and they had enough money and resources to, instead of like sit down and deal with their shit, they're just like, you know what? I'm going to make sure that the thing that I'm scared of never happens by, causing this big ass problem for everybody. And so now we got a whole world of people suffering for the fears of a few. And most of the time, things that you're afraid of don't ever even actually fucking happen. But we got all of this, pain and death trying to mitigate somebody's unsubstantiated fears.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it kind of, from a evolutionary standpoint, it makes sense in a world where we don't have huge communities, we don't have the society that we have. Back in like Iron Age, your village can be attacked by a lion, and if your fear doesn't cause you to attack, then you're going to die. Or if you don't see something move in the grass and you don't assume it's a tiger, you may die. You may just get mauled. So the problem with us now is that we don't need it in that way anymore, but we still have it, and people don't find better ways to deal with it. And humanity as a whole hasn't figured out that we don't necessarily, that our brains have, our technology, our innovations have taken us further than that, but our biological clickingness doesn't, hasn't fully evolved to it either. So people think it's the right thing to do to just get angry and attack.
It's kind of a ancient development for us, but the parts of our brain haven't evolved as fast as our society has, and so there has to be some catch up. So next here, Garibaldi, he hears the whole thing. Garibaldi affirms his commitment, and Edgar's prepared to release this telepath virus. And he notes that the telepath problem, then he pauses and he takes a breath and he kind of stares off in the distance. He goes, "Will finally be over." Edgar pauses there because he knows exactly what he sounds like. And what he sounds like is the 1930s propaganda in Germany. And I'm going to leave this space blank for people to go ahead and fill it in with what we know problem they were doing things about. So unbeknownst to them, Lise is overhearing the whole thing and she's very distraught. Edgar's leaves with Wade. Garibaldi reveals a minuscule transmitter in his tooth. He pulls it out, he breaks it, then he leaves. He goes to one of the tubes and he's just sitting there. Lise finds him and she goes like, "Oh my God, Garibaldi, I didn't know that this was going to happen." And Garibaldi's just like, "Leave. Go be somewhere else." Now he's a robot. And she's just completely distraught about the whole situation. She runs off. As soon as she leaves the tube, Bester walks in and he sits down right across from Garibaldi, and Garibaldi does not budge. This is when we get the supervillain monologue of the whole season. Because Bester, he just recounts the whole thing about how they captured Garibaldi and how, like, Garibaldi, we had to keep you the way that you were because there are parts of you that are extremely important. So we didn't completely wipe your personality. Not like what they did with Talia.
Mm-hmm.
And he told Garibaldi, like, "No, I want you to remember this." And as an audience member, it's like, "Oh no, poor Garibaldi." But as me watching, I'm like, "Yeah, Garibaldi, relive this whole situation and watch where you fucked up." No. Okay. So he explains that it was during the Shadow War. They wanted to adjust them, but they had also guessed that the Shadows had developed some technology to fight the telepaths. And Bester explains, like, yeah, the Shadows didn't like us. And Earth Force didn't like us, and here we are standing in the middle being controlled by both sides. And so Bester launched this plan to figure it out so he could save the telepaths. And then with him being reprogrammed, and he had to make sure that the scans didn't ruin his memory, and also that he didn't remember who did the scans. And when they were satisfied, they let him go, and they let Garibaldi's mind do a lot of the actual decision making. So when he quit his post, that was something they didn't expect him to do, but it actually served their purposes because it put him right in the hands of Edgars. And then they find out, like, okay, so Edgars is the one with the virus. No problem. We'll kill him, of course, and nobody will be none the wiser. And my telepaths will be safe, right? And we'll just figure out who else has stuff like this. And so it's just wild. And it also, this is what makes me think about Bester's larger motivations, because as much as we say that he's a terrible human being, which he is, and a terrible like evil character, which he is, his whole thing is he absolutely loves telepaths. He doesn't want to see them oppressed. He doesn't want to see them subjugated, and he actually really hates the fact that they are controlled by a government.
Mm-hmm.
He likes Psycor though, because he likes telepaths being organized. And he likes people being afraid of telepaths. And he likes the superior power that he has in those positions. But the rest of it, the condition of telepaths, that's what he hates. And you could say like, okay, this can be a Magneto type of character, but Bester is a little bit more ruthless than Magneto.
Yeah, he's reminding me of more like a Batman villain, like maybe the Penguin or something, where he's like clearly trying to like protect whatever trauma he has, but he's also quite intelligent about it. I think the Penguin would be the closest that I could think of that would be intelligent but also ruthless and crazy.
If we wanted to stay in the Marvel universe, he reminds me of Sinister.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Sinister doesn't start off as a mutant, but he absolutely loves those mutant powers, and he genetically modifies himself to become like a mutant, and he will manipulate people, he will clone himself, he'll do all this stuff so he can get more power. And he just kind of looks at everybody as an experiment, and that's kind of Bester's perspective too. It's like, oh, cool, you're an experiment, so we can figure out how to best rule you later. He is an absolute monster. If we didn't know that and we weren't convinced enough, what he says to Garibaldi next is so wild. Because he's like, I could leave you like this. Which is, you can have all your memories intact and you can be in this shell of a human being and not be able to do anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's bad enough. But what's worse is what he does next. He goes, but that's not what I want, Garibaldi. This is what I want. I'm going to actually release you, and I want you to remember everything. And he gives the signal, like the telepathic signal, to release Garibaldi and his memories. The memories snap back to Garibaldi painfully. And Bester's just gone. He just stands up and walks away. He doesn't run. He doesn't flee. He doesn't even fight him. He just walks away. And there's Garibaldi in the tube. Mind finally his. He's completely free now. And he is fuming because he was used to betray his captain. And he knows that he is not ever going to be able to go back.
Oh, I was saying, I don't think he thinks that. He's way too, entitled to think that there's anything that's going to stop him from being able to get back in the graces of people. You see how you treat his ex? Like, all the crazy shit he did to her wasn't a big deal. Just let that shit go.
Yeah.
I think what cinematically it looked like was him having an existential crisis. Like when things just dawn on you all of a sudden and it changes your whole view on things. That's what happened when he got his memory back. And that's not pleasant in real life, to actually like come to a sudden realization of what's been going on with you or what you've done. It's terrible, and I think they did a really good job of integrating that into that whole story of being manipulated and controlled, because a lot of this season had a lot to do with other people being manipulative.
Yeah. And so Garibaldi left on Mars in a tube by himself, revealed to the entire galaxy that he's a traitor. Like, wow. I don't know, bravo or boo Bester. I don't know what to do.
Right. Because, like, Garibaldi kind of deserves it. Like, even if he wasn't brainwashed, he's still a jerk. And and to see where his actions go, this was almost like a self-awareness, but I know he's not fully self-aware. He's not. We already know he's not going to be self-aware, even though he has the perfect opportunity to become aware of his actions. But so for us, it looks like revenge, but at the same time, adding to it what Bester's goals are. Like, he says he's not a complete monster because he is trying to protect people who are being oppressed. It's just the way he's going about it. Kind of crazy. So I don't know, all those, it's just a lot of mixed emotions, which it's a drama, so you can expect that.
So when we come back, we get that Ivanova understands the assignment and says, "Oh, that bastard Garibaldi. If he shows up on Babylon 5, I want him shot on sight." Yeah. So he can't go back to Babylon 5. He tries to search Edgar's home. He finds that Edgar's is dead. That place has been tossed upside down. Edgar's was killed pretty much minutes afterwards. In fact, he predicted it. It's like, if telepaths knew about this, I'd be dead in 5 minutes. 5 minutes later, Edgar's is dead. And Wade is injured. He was found under a couch, and he talks about how Lise wasn't there when they attacked, and then he dies. Which, his name was Wade. Anyway, he talked about how Edgar's liked the people that work for him to be really smart. And that is kind of an interesting thing because a lot of times these billionaires, the people that they surround themselves with, have this sense of being smarter than everyone. And so they can value a certain type of intelligence but ignore another type because they had been followed by the entire time, basically. And then they were murdered. And at the end, we see an ISN report, and it talks about how Edgar's was assassinated, and then it highlights Garibaldi being the betrayer of Sheridan, and it's basically just wrapping up that whole storyline into a neat bow with Garibaldi sitting at the middle. Because who's going to help him now? All the people that were paying him are dead. Nobody's going to believe he was controlled by telepaths. Not really.
Lise is gone.
Lise is gone, and he's on Mars. The only people that he might be able to trust are the Resistance, and they saw the news. They don't like him.
Yeah.
Do you think that he has access to get back to like any of his squad members on Babylon 5? Or would all his incoming communications be caught by Ivanova and then disregarded?
Oh yeah, he's probably, like, all of his stuff has been restricted. They're probably monitoring the stuff that he does kind of on the slide too. Without giving too much about what happens in the next episode, he has to go outside of those channels to do some things, but he has to pretty much move heaven and earth before anybody trusts him again.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about the ISN report, they lie. They talk about how Sheridan is well rested and fed, and he feels remorse and regret for causing the war. And this whole situation leaves the telepaths just in the clear because they don't have anything connecting them to what they were doing with Garibaldi. All they have is Garibaldi's word, and nobody trusts that. And then the episode ends, and we're just like, oh my goodness. So then the question is like, what's going to happen with the assault? What's going to happen with the war? They captured the leader, you know.
Oh, did y'all forget? Like, they have the acting Captain Ivanova. She about to tear y'all ass up.
Yeah. I mean, yes, possibly. Which, if we know how Ivanova handles things in the past, she would probably, if she had her way, she would definitely be a war criminal, letting people out of the airlock. So
Whoa.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, we still got an episode to figure out how this is gonna wrap up. I mean, I said it's still an episode but there's quite a few more episodes because remember we're still wrapping up an epic story right now. We wrapped up a couple, but this one that we're in the middle of, the way that they are wrapping this up, the way that they're gonna come to this conclusion is gonna be amazing.
Thank you guys for traveling back in time with us.
So we're gonna go back to the future. Actually, yeah, we're gonna go back to the future so we can continue season 5 episodes. In the meantime, be sure to continue the conversation. Y'all can check us out at Voices in Hyperspace on our Facebook, our Instagram, and our TikTok. Be sure to go to our YouTube at Voices in Hyperspace. Like, share, and follow. I'm Legendary Black Lion. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at Legendary Black Lion.
I'm Mel Asylum. You can find me at melsrebellion.com and YouTube.
Hey y'all, this is Sunday. You can find me at a poker table.
Until next time, y'all. See you out there. Peace.